Welcome to All Things Moore County, Moore County's weekly radio show highlighting the many facets of the Sandhills. That includes real estate, lifestyle, community and neighborhoods. And now, from 4 Properties, here's your host, Bill Sahadi.
Good morning and welcome to the talk show, All Things Moore County. Dorothy, not only is it spring, we are officially in Masters Week and Masters Weekend.
Oh, cool.
And ever since I moved here in 1999, there's a different orientation about Masters Week in the South than there is in the Northeast where I grew up. And it not only marks the opening of golf season, but it's a ritual and it's a tradition that so many people who live here in Moore County honor because golf is such a big part of our community. But golf is also, as you'll find out from my guest, Courtney Stiles, who is the executive director of First Tee here in the Sandhills. Golf is also a great teaching tool for kids of all ages who learn discipline, commitment, manners, rules, behaviors that they and cooperation with kids that they're not in school with. And I remember as a kid when I crashed my parents' car at the age of 13, when I drove it through a closed garage door. My father met me in the garage the next day and said, "I want you to meet. I'm going to be talking to some contractors, and it would be a good experience for you." And of course, I said, "I'll be there." When the contractor wrote the bill up, my father said, "Oh, no, it's not for me, it's for him. He's going to pay it." Well, 3 weeks later, I started working as a caddy at the Knickerbocker Country Club in Tenafly, New Jersey. And it taught me how to save money. It taught me how to be responsible for the things that I caused or I did. Golf has always had a very important meaning in helping me grow up. Courtney Stiles, who is the executive director, it's been 10 years. You've been on the show a couple of times in these last 10 years, but it's hard to believe that a whole decade has gone by. I remember when you first came here, read about you, and you're here today to talk not just about the First Tee program for people who may not know about it, but all the changes and all the growth and what you're trying to create here in the Sandhills. It's a much different organization than it was 10 years ago, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for having me today, Bill.
Yeah, we've talked over the years. We've always had the ability to work with you with some of your golf tournaments. You've become a professional fundraiser, and they didn't teach you that in school, right?
No.
And how did you just learn by trial by fire?
Some people would say that I should be a natural at fundraising because my dad could sell ice to an Eskimo, but it's definitely not in my natural DNA to fundraise. But I have found that through developing relationships with people in the community and just being honest and sincere and telling them your goals and asking if they want to be involved is a more natural approach. But yeah, it's part of what we do is to fundraise because we want to support youth in our community, and we want to do it in a way that every family can afford it regardless of where things are for them.
From afar, I can tell you that your honesty and your credibility has made a big difference in the organization, and the fact that you are not about yourself, but you're about all others. I mean, that comes through in between the lines. People are transparent, and they can sense that about you, how committed you are. The 10-year journey started. You had a 6-year-old daughter and a 2-year-old. Now your 16-year-old daughter is a track athlete, and your son is a sixth grader. You're in a completely different. Do you ever sit back and think about, oh my gosh, what a difference these last 10 years have made?
Yes, it has flown by,
Yep.
but we have had a ton of fun seeing our children grow up here, and having lived through the last 10 years with children in this age group really gives me a lot of reference points to what kids are going through in our community, and to continue to keep my eyes open to what we can do as an organization to support kids. I stay involved at their schools so I can get feedback from teachers and principals and other parents, and listen in at the sports fields and at church, and just really try to take all of the good, better house that I'm hearing and see how we can activate them at First Tee.
You were a college golfer, an aspiring pro golfer. You use golf as a hook, as a career. How did it happen that you segued from golf as a career to golf as a First Tee executive? How did that all come about?
So, it's kind of interesting. I was playing on the Futures Tour, and for those that are familiar with mini tour golf for women, the joke is that you could make the cut and spend more money playing on the weekend than actually going home a couple days early. So every tournament, I would stay in private housing to save money, and I met this wonderful family in New York. And they had their cousin staying with them the same week as me. And lo and behold, he worked at the PGA Tour. And we got to know each other that week. And he said, I just love everything about you. If the day comes that you don't want to play anymore, reach out and I will find you a role at the PGA Tour to get your foot in the door.
Huh.
And the day came. And I called him, and 60 days later, I had an interview, and 60 days later, I had moved to Jacksonville, Florida, and was working at the PGA Tour. From there, I had the opportunity to work in tournament operations and helped run the PGA Tour event, the RSM Classic at Sea Island.
Oh, yeah.
And worked for the Love family there. And the story to First Tee goes that one day Davis came into the office just all relaxed and free-spirited like he normally is, and he plopped down at my desk and said, Courtney, I've been going to a lot of these PGA Tour events, and they keep asking me to do clinics with First Tee kids. And I said, yes, I've seen that. And he said, I think I want to start a First Tee chapter here. And I was like, well, that could be really great. I mean, while Sea Island and St. Simons are very established, the surrounding community has a lot of poverty and kids need support. And he said, okay, well, could you take care of that? And I said, oh, okay, I'll look into it. He goes, all right, well, let me know what you find out.
That's how it started.
And so I started the First Tee chapter down there on behalf of his foundation. And about a year after we were up and running, I saw the opportunity to come up here, and we gave it a go. And 10 years later, here you and I sit.
I remember reading articles about you coming here when you interviewed and got the position. Well, when you mentioned Davis Love Jr., I'll tell you a real quick story. His senior year in high school, I was in Pinehurst at the Bob Tosky Golf School. One of my instructors was his father, Davis, and I have a picture at home standing with him and Paul Runyon, Dee Dee Owens, Jim Flick, and there was somebody, Jack Lumpkin. Davis Love Sr. said goodbye to the class on the Pinehurst Range a day before our school was over because he had to get down to Sea Island to attend his son's high school graduation. I want to say it was in the early 80s. Small world.
Yeah.
And what a nice man he was. So I remember reading the article about you coming here, and it was new to you, and it was an opportunity. So the mission of the First Tee, is it any different today than it was when you first came and accepted the job here? And talk a little bit about the mission of the First Tee.
So I think that we have a couple of ways to look at the mission. Number one, First Tee is a national organization, and we have our national scope of what we're trying to achieve and the curriculum we use to do that. And if anything, we've continued at a national level to enhance the mission for all the chapters. And it still remains the same in that we're using caring adult mentors through an established curriculum to hook kids into the game of golf and teach them life skills and essentially to become better invested community members who are establishing themselves down the road. At our local chapter, I think that our mission has developed and grown in that we've been able to become more clear about how we can deliver that mission, how we can push into more schools, how we go to where the kids are and support kids and support families. And we've expanded how we onboard volunteers and coaches and make sure that they feel prepared and equipped to support a very diverse group of kids across this area of the state.
Have you been intricately involved in recruiting a lot of the volunteers and then coaching them on how to be mentors?
I am definitely involved with connecting adults in our community, and Sarah on our staff is an absolute expert when it comes to helping create confidence with those adults to show them ways to engage with a group of kids. She is definitely our shining star in that area, but it's a lot of fun to meet adults. When we meet adults that want to get involved, no two are the same.
Right. Same with kids.
Yeah, so it's really fun, and they find their little group of folks that they want to support one another in volunteering around the county, and we couldn't do it without them.
You're in the unique position of not just being the executive director of First Tee, but being a parent. And your children's age in the last 10 years parallels so many of the ages of the students that come into the program. Is it hard for you not to take the philosophies home with you? And do you look at your kids sometimes as if they were students?
Yes.
In the program? I'm sure.
Absolutely. I mean, honestly, just this past weekend, we were sitting with our daughter, obviously 10th grader. She's going through a lot of life changes, and we were having a candid conversation and talking about that we're trying to give her the tools to be better prepared when she becomes a young adult and she's out on her own. And as we're having this conversation, I can just see light bulbs in my head thinking, we've given this lesson at First Tee before, and now I'm delivering it with the kiddo at home without a golf club. There's definitely pros and cons to it, but I take the nuggets that I learn at work and try to implement them outside of work.
Is it fair to say that in 7 of the last 10 years, you spent a ton of time laying the groundwork for the platform where you are today, with the ability now to talk about where you're going to be in 5 or 10 years, because your stamp is not just in the Sandhills anymore. It's a much bigger circle.
Yes. We, as an organization, we were very focused on a couple key spaces in the community to support kids early on.
Right.
And we've really said, where can we better serve kids? And so we have spread out, and we currently have programming in what I would call 13 different locations across 4 counties. And we've really gone into those pods to support kids, to be able to now say what else is missing, what can we do above and beyond what we're doing today. And it's taken a lot of work, and it continues to take work every day.
We're going to come back in the second set. We want to talk a lot about some of the growth opportunities in front of you. And in 10 years, it's time to reflect also. I would love to hear some personal stories of growth that you've seen with kids where the first tee absolutely makes a difference, because it brings it to life for the people, the adults around who donate, who participate with First Tee. This is All Things Moore County. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our second set of All Things Moore County. Our guest for the whole hour is Courtney Stiles. 10 years now, the executive director of the First Tee of the Sandhills, with a lot of growth plans in the future. One of the things I get fascinated by when I have kids on the show, whether they are in the arts or whether they're in sports, is the way they engage. We were talking in between sets about eye contact and how important that is, and how so many kids avoid it. They shrug their shoulders or they look down. And you probably experience exactly the same thing with the students, maybe the first time they're coming into the program.
Absolutely. I actually have had the opportunity to go engage and coach with some programs this spring already. And one of our week one icebreakers is to have the kids go around, find other kids they don't recognize, shake hands, tell them something about themselves.
Oh boy.
And it's always a unique outcome.
Right.
Some kids take to it naturally. Other kids are really nervous, and you
Right.
can see their body language. And we just work through the exercise together. And we ask them to go out and find 3 different kids and tell them 3 different things about themselves. And we encourage the coaches to jump in and participate as well. But by the end of the exercise, they've loosened up. They're making contact with one another through their eyes versus looking at their toes. And it just sets the groundwork for what the next 8 weeks are going to look like.
I had the privilege years ago to watch you with a group of kids starting a session, and today I have visions of you with this group of kids doing these exercises. But before you start the program, I have a vision of you walking around with a big bag, asking all the kids to park their cell phones for the duration of the session, because the cell phones are probably your greatest competition for their attention.
Absolutely. And, 10
Do you
years.
collect them all?
Oh, 100%. We let them know when they get to class, it either stays in their bag turned off, or we
Right.
can put it under the table so it's out of sight, out of mind.
Right.
And that's a problem that is continuously evolving. It was not as big of a deal with the little kids 10 years ago.
Right.
But today we're having kids come to class and play in games that are 8, 9 years old on their phone, and we're having to ask them to put it away.
Well, to me, the phones replace my generation's kids' imaginary friends, because they can just relate to their phone and not have to interact with others. But the first tee, you try to get through all those shackles and clean it up and get them to be more eyeball to eyeball contact and social, and skills start developing through the game of golf, through the coaching that you do?
Absolutely. We really approach all of our activities as partner activities, and we have the kids problem solve through golf, whether it's something as simple as we've got 5 boxes out there, they're all worth different points. How do we get all those points to equal 21? But we got to do it together. And so there's so many layers. Like they're learning how to play golf and how to move a target left and right, but they're also learning to communicate with that other child, and they're throwing in some math, and they're throwing in other variables of a competition and how to handle what it feels like if you and your buddy don't win that round, or if you do win that round, and what do you do when the game's over? How do you react to the other kids? So on the surface, folks may say, oh, this is just a golf program for kids. But if you really think about the different touch points and exposures they get over a period of time,
Yeah.
It really builds, and it's great to see kids evolve.
One of the things I get is that you and I share one thing in common. We were both raised by tough love parents. I don't see as much of that today. The temptations are too daunting, and everybody is so wrapped up in their own world that sometimes the parents are just all over the place. It's hard. But tough love lessons are the ones I remember the most. Even though I hated my parents for them, I remember them today, and I miss them for that reason.
Yeah.
And you too?
Absolutely. We were held accountable. We had to work hard for what we had. If we made the wrong decision, it would be addressed, and you would just not make the wrong decision. But I appreciated the world we grew up in then. And I think that at First Tee, we're able to do a good job of balancing still having that orderly experience and holding kids accountable at the program. We have 2-3 strikes and you're out, so to speak. Whatever the you're out is for the day, they understand that there is a consequence.
Right.
And then to the flip of the coin, we talk to them constantly about we're going to leave this space we're using today in better shape than it was when we got here. And they help make sure that's the case.
For the parents listening, today, what is the age group of the kids that you are mentoring and coaching? Where do they start? How it's a pretty wide span, isn't it?
It is. I will say one adjustment we've made is beginning this summer. We are only going to work with 5 and 6-year-olds in the summer so that during the school year we can really focus on our curriculum age participants, which is age 7 through high school.
Okay.
So we have programs by age now. So 7, 8, and 9-year-olds do programming together. 10 to 12, and then 13 and older. And each one is a unique curriculum that works for that age child and what they're going through in life and what they're learning at school.
Right. You have a pretty intuitive website whereby the different schedule of classes that you have and the associated costs are posted. They're probably as valuable as graduate school and a lot less expensive because the kids will take those life lessons with them for a long, long time.
Yeah, so our true cost to operate a program is around $350 a child, and we fundraise the difference to get the cost down below $100 a family. So we fundraise that differential, and then we have a no child turned away policy. I would say that we have about 25% of those families ask for a scholarship, and we absolutely want to support that. And then in addition, golf equipment is a hurdle. Mm-hmm. It was for my family. It is for kids today. And so we have an equipment loaner program, and kids get to be measured up. We put a bag of clubs together, and they take them with them, and they're responsible for those clubs until they hit a growth spurt and need to get a new set. We had over 220 kids last year go home with a set of clubs, and even more this year. So we want to make sure those barriers are broken down.
That expression, it takes a village, is never truer than it is with the First Tee and Moore County. Isn't that true?
Absolutely. Just yesterday, one of our volunteers came by the office, picked up 4 sets of clubs to take to his garage to regrip and cut down, and put a tag on them so they were ready to go out next week to a new kid.
That's crazy. Is your son, does he participate in the program?
He does.
He's a 6th grader, so he's been in the program. Is he an avid golfer?
He very much enjoys golf. He has the golf bug. He's slowly starting to gain interest in the practice side to say, what can I do to be a better player? But he loves being around the game. He just loves talking to other golfers. It doesn't matter if it's a 5-year-old or a 55-year-old.
Yeah. And the mentors, excuse me, the coaches that you recruit, the volunteers, they buy into the program, and my guess is you have more volunteers than you can. No?
No.
Oh, help me out on that one.
So we have to modify how many programs we can offer based on the number of coaches and volunteers we have right now that are able to coach, because quality is really important to us.
Right.
So you're always going to see super low ratios, like one adult with 4 to 6 kids at the most.
That's
It's
great.
all about quality. So what I try to tell folks is, if you raise your hand and want to volunteer at First Tee, it's not a 52-week-a-year ask. You know, we're asking you to say, hey, can Wednesday evenings for 8 days, 8 weeks work? 8 of your 52 Wednesdays. Can
Right.
you do that for us? And
Right.
we know that we can go to you for those 8 Wednesdays each year.
Right.
So the lift is not overwhelming, but the impact is really high.
Okay. I want to come back in the third set. I also want to talk about some of the board members. I want to talk to you about maybe some of your donors. And if there are any stories that meant a lot to you that stick in your mind, because I'm sure over 10 years there have been some stories you'll never forget, right? If you're good to do that, I won't pry, but I'll ask politely. Courtney Stiles is our guest. She is the executive director of First Tee, and after 10 years, we can say that she's an institution in one of the most iconic organizations in Moore County. This is All Things Moore County. We'll be right back.
This was just like a month ago. She's probably 11.
Right.
She loved it.
That was a good story.
Yeah.
We don't even want to wait for the introduction, Dorothy. Courtney has too much to talk about. Telling the story of an 11-year-old, and tell me what she did.
So one of the one of the TV stations out of Raleigh, kids can submit to be considered to get to be a junior weather girl, weather boy for a segment on the show to get to experience working in TV. And she got picked and got to go up to Raleigh and learn how to report the weather with the weatherman.
Was she in the First Tee program?
She is, yeah.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, the video is adorable. She did so amazing.
Well, maybe the next time you come on, you can bring a couple of your students with you.
That would be great.
And let them speak, and because they have the power, and the confidence will go up. There's a lot of confidence in what the First Tee is doing, and just by virtue of what you've built here, you're now looking at a project in Cameron about a campus that is going to be developed. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So we really started putting a vision together for this right at 24 months ago and drew up a vision, talked about what could we achieve if we had land that we could control the schedule on. What could we do above and beyond everything that happens today? And so we just dreamed on it for a while. And then we started looking at land. We talked with the Development Authority. We talked with all of our school advocates and our volunteers to survey them and get feedback, and really said this has to be in the location that works for the next 30 years.
Right.
We had opportunities to make quick purchases in other places,
Right.
and we held true to the vision and where this needed to be. And Cameron, right off of US 1, became the spot. And so we now have 35 acres. Because of the support of our community and our donors and their confidence in us, we were able to buy the land with all cash, so we're not in debt whatsoever.
That's great.
And now we're really moving forward. We're continuing to design and figure out who's going to be a part of this. It's exciting.
So my first impression when I heard about it and I heard Cameron, my first impression was, why so far north of southern Moore County? But you have an answer for that.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
it's twofold. I mean, number one, our organization does have a 9 county footprint. So pretty much every county that touches Moore County is part of our service area. And number two, research showed us two things. Number one, it showed us that we have high interest and opportunity headed north on US 1 into Sanford, into Whispering Pines, Carthage, Cameron, into the western side of Cumberland County. And we don't have a place to support those kids and families right now. And number two, all of our growth in this community is headed north, and all the growth from the north is headed south.
Right.
And that Moore County, Lee County border is the sweet spot for that growth. And so
Right.
we wanted to be ahead of the curve, not trying to catch the curve.
You've had the privilege of working with a couple of very talented and dedicated individuals who are on your board. Bob Klug for one, Bob Farron for another. You want to talk a little bit about them?
Yes, the Bobs, the
The Bobs.
dynamic duo.
Yep.
I talk to them frequently.
Yep.
And when I'm talking to one Bob, I have to say, Bob Klug or Bob Farron or Bob
Right.
said this. I do a lot of bobbing.
Yeah.
But they're amazing men. Their
Yep.
families are amazing. Bob Klug was part of our group of individuals that established this chapter in 2003.
That's right.
And today he's a lifetime board member.
Right.
And Bob Farron joined our board in 2018 and has been a wonderful resource for the organization. But they both come from different walks of life, and they've been very important components in this project and helping us find our footing and make sure it's the right place to develop a community space.
This is one of the few areas in the country where both the First Tee and the USGA get to coexist. And I know they're completely separate operations, but golf is an incestuous business. The industry itself, the connections and the opportunities that you have with them can't hurt.
Absolutely not. And I would just go one step farther and say that it's really the USGA, it's Golf Pride, it's the Carolinas Golf Foundation.
Right.
The three of those entities and ourselves, we have a lot of exciting opportunities. All three organizations have been very supportive of us where we are today, and they're all 2 feet in to support the project in Cameron, and we're going to work together in a lot of exciting and creative ways.
So it really does take a village.
Oh, absolutely.
Talk to me about your fundraising. Has your approach changed in the last 5 or 6 years? Because it's an art to be able to do it, and it gets you completely networked into the community.
I would say that I continue to learn, but I think that most fundraising is done person to person. It's really about having introductions made and finding what similarities you have and what you're both equally passionate about,
Right.
whether it's an individual or a business, and just really making sure that our donors understand that we have their dollars at best interest and how we're going to use them to deliver the mission and to show them that we hold true to that.
And what do you say to, there are two audiences in front of us. One are the parents listening who have kids who maybe want to get them off their cell phones too. And as far as recruiting them, what's in it for the parents to introduce their kids to some of the programs that you set up?
Absolutely. So, as a fellow parent, I always tell parents what's better than having other people help implement the values we want our kids to have when they leave the nest. And kids learn from people that aren't their parents because they don't want to listen to us. And so those parents can trust that when their kid comes to First Tee, they're going to be safe, they're going to be encouraged, they're going to play a sport and have fun learning. They might be disappointed in themselves, but we'll boost them up and help them get a better footing for the next go around.
Yeah.
But it's a great place for their kids to spend time.
And that organic communication is just the antithesis of social media, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I heard you speaking to our engineer Dorothy during one of the breaks. I don't know how you did this, but I think a lot of parents would want to hire you. You were able to keep your eldest child off social media till ninth grade.
Well, she actually did not get a cell phone until the week before ninth grade, and to this day, she's not allowed to have social media. We really
Has she moved out yet, or is she still living with you?
It's day to day. So we'll see.
At 16, it's a tough age.
Yes,
right?
it is.
Because she knows so much more than you realize, and she wants to tell you, Mom, you don't understand.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And you have to roll your eyes because you were there, but it takes consistency and discipline to keep that going, because it's so easy just to walk away from it, right?
It is. And you can get frustrated.
Yeah.
You have moments where you're squilling up and down and celebrating successes. And then you have moments where they quickly turn the other way as a parent. And
Right.
we're just trying to do the best for our kids so that they're ready when we're not around.
One of the things you teach in the First Tee program is sportsmanship. And being willing to, because in life you need sportsmanship, because you don't win every day. You lose, you win. Every day is a different day. But sportsmanship is a key component of some of your training.
It is. Sportsmanship can be seen at a First Tee class. It can also be seen in the office. It
Yeah.
can be seen really anywhere. And we will use the opportunity at First Tee to put kids in a situation where they're going to be pushed to a potential healthy breaking point. Whether it's through a game or a conversation. And we want to really use how they react to be an opportunity to become self-aware and make adjustments. And I know that sounds really deep, but I can promise the kids are doing it in a really fun way. I've been there myself for it. I've heard the stories, but they work through it. And then the hope is that they apply it at home with their sibling.
Right.
And they can handle it better in the future.
Is that what you call coachable moments?
Yes.
Right?
Yes, it's a coachable moment. My staff jokes that we're going to all get T-shirts that say #growth opportunity, because I use that saying so much that they say it before I do now.
Right.
But it is.
Well, one last thing I want to talk to you about is how do you speak to that other audience that's out there, which are the potential volunteers?
Yes. So what I would tell them is now is the time to come explore an opportunity at First Tee. Come join me at a class and see what it's all about. Dip your toe into the program and remember that you don't have to have a golf handicap to make an impact on a young person.
Well said. That's really well said. I remember all the lessons I learned about golf and character as a kid as if they were just yesterday. They don't leave you. Those are indelible impressions. I watched as a caddy. I learned about people. I would come home and tell my father, "Oh, I really like the man I caddied for. I didn't like the other man." And he would say, "Why?" And I would explain as a 14 or 15-year-old either his behavior or his honor or his selfishness. Kids pick up,
Kids pick up. My
right?
quick story, my son has now caddied for me twice,
Okay.
and he is an observer.
Yep.
And we obviously are playing with other competitors, and he would watch how the other folks were acting, and he'd kind of whisper when no one's around, like, I can't believe that person did that, or that person was so nice. And it started to translate to life situations away from the golf course.
Right.
And he'll say, "Mom, I don't know that that person should have acted that way,"
Mm-hmm.
or the opposite. And so it's absolutely a life lesson.
Kids are always watching if you give them if you set up the stage for them. Lastly, your website, if people want to find out more about the First Tee and some of your programs.
Absolutely. FirstTeeSandhills.org, or find us on Facebook or Instagram.
Okay.
We're constantly plugging information there, and Google us. It's all out there.
At the end of your summer period, before you get into your classes for the fall, maybe we can, like you said, do a 2.0 show. And maybe we can bring in a couple of the kids, and maybe we can videotape it.
Yeah.
That would, I think the kids would, I think you could recruit a few.
Absolutely.
Would you consider doing that?
Yeah, that would be great. I think that would be wonderful for the kids.
Yeah, so do I.
We want to always plant new seeds in their life, and that would be a great one.
Yeah. Courtney Stiles, you're a good egg.
Oh.
The executive director of First Tee, she started a legacy here in Moore County and continues to grow. Please look into the First Tee for many reasons. It's a great organization, and it's one of the things that we can do to help kids see a better way, think for themselves, and get life skills at a very young age before they have to go out into the world. This is All Things Moore County. Have a great week. Thanks, Courtney.
Thank you.